have this book cover. This is a Slinky book that I got from Curly in one of her sales, and the book itself from the spine out is 6 inches, so the pages are only about 5 3/4 by 5. And then I have this box that was a set of cards, and I took the Velcro and everything off of it, and the cards are all gone, and the box is about 6.5 by roughly 5 1/4, and it's about 1 1/4 inches thick. So that makes this the perfect project for a 6x6 pad. And I have this one that I'm going to be using because I really love the paper in it, and I've been kind of looking for a project to do it, to use this in. So I'm going to be using this pad, and it's a 6x6, so it's perfect. It's the smaller images, which works better in the smaller book. I also have some blue brads that I thought, you know, they match the blue in here. So I got some blue brads. I have the ephemera set that matches the pad, and I even managed to get the tape that matches the pad. So we're going to be using all of those. I have some Cane Company things that I think might work in here, like the egg and stuff might work, and the blues are the right color. I'm going to be processing the box to begin with, and so it has a bit of a kind of texture to it. So I'm going to be using a sanding block just to kind of take that shine off of there. And we're going to be using a magnet closure on this. And the idea is to make a journal that fits in the box. So we don't want it to be hugely wide, but you know, we want to have some stuff in here. We're going to do some different things this time that I don't normally do in my books, but because this one is so small, we're going to be doing some extra things. Okay, we are going to be using a fabric cover on this one. We're going to do paint paper on the box, fabric on the book itself. We're going to be doing some interesting things in here, and I'm going to go ahead and get this kind of sanded down, and then we'll get started getting this painted. Okay, I'll be back. Alright, so we've sanded this one down and taken most of the shine off of it, and I have my gesso. And so what I'm going to do is, this is a very heavy body gesso, I'm going to put a fairly liberal coat of gesso on this. I'm not too worried because I'm going to be painting this black, so that should pretty much cover everything, but I just want to kind of give it something to, a little more to stick to, since, you know, the box itself was shiny to begin with. So I'll do the outside of the box, and then I'll let that dry, and then I will turn it and do it the inside. So we're going to do this outside part first, give it a little time to dry, and I'm not going to process this with my heat tool because I find that with this heavier weight gesso, it tends to make the gesso crack, and I don't want the cracking to come through. So I'm just going to go ahead and let it air dry. So get a nice coat on here. And I will do the sides while I'm at it. And then, as I said, I'm going to give this probably about 30 minutes or so to dry. Whenever you're using a heavier gesso, it does take extra time to dry. Okay, so I went ahead and I put my gesso on here. Now, I didn't white this completely out, as you can see. You can still see what's under here. And the reason for that is that I'm going to be covering this with paper. And as I said, I'm going to be using a 6x6 pad, which is tall enough, but it's not quite wide enough, and that's okay, because I was going to mat this anyway. So I'm going to be using one piece for the front, one piece for the back, and then one piece should cover all of these 4 sides, and probably using a different paper on the inside and painting this portion. So let's work on the outside first. And so what I'm going to do is pick some paper out of the pad here. with this. So let's see. I'll get another piece of that. You know, right at the front of the book. All right, and then we need something for the sides. No. Blue. Okay, so we'll use the blue on the outsides, and we'll use this to make our mats here. Now, in doing this, I don't want to leave this white on the outside. I want to give it some color. So I have a piece of plain white cardstock here. I have a palette, and I have a couple of colors that I believe may be a good match to the blue that's in this set. So I'm just going to put a drop of each into the palette here. Oops. Got a little bit of a paint burp there. There we go. And this is going to allow me to kind of do a test swatch. So let's start off with the lighter color first. And then we'll go ahead and do the darker color. And waste not, want not. Go ahead and put that excess back in there. There we go. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and dry these really quick, and we're going to take a look and see which one or both of these works. So let me hit this with the heat gun real quick. If you don't like the noise, turn your volume down. Not completely dry, but dry enough. And let's go ahead and take a look at our paper. And I think I was right here. And of course, the best way to figure this out is now to take this and just cut right across your swatches. And then you can hold your swatches right up to your pieces. And I think that both of these colors are really good for this paper. So we're going to go ahead and be using these colors. Now, I don't want to color the whole box, because then I'm sticking, I'm going to be gluing paper onto basically paint, the whole thing, and I want to use the gesso to hold the glue in. So let's go ahead, and I kind of like the darker one of the two. So what I'm going to do is, you know what, I'm going to use the lighter. It's an aesthetics thing, guys. We'll get it. All right, so I'm going to put some white paint in here. I've got a brush. I've got some blue paint. And I'm not going to paint the whole thing. Okay? What I'm going to do is paint about the outside inch. Okay? And this will probably take 2 coats, just so that I make sure that I don't have any white coming through and I get good coverage on this. So I'm going to go ahead and paint this out. And as I said, I'm only going to paint about an inch, ½ inch, 3/4 of an inch, give or take. So that basically when I put my paper on, this is all blue around the outside. So we're going to make sure that we paint on our seams just like we would ink, only we're not going to ink. Not on this part. We may ink on the book, but we're not going to ink on this part. In this part, we're using our paint in place. Okay? So, we'll get this one all done. And when I have this all done and it's dry, I'm going to do the inside as well. And we're going to get 2 layers on here. And once we have 2 layers on here all the way around, and I'm going to be doing the sides as well. Once we have those 2 layers all the way around, I'll be back and we will get to working on the inside and getting our paper mounted. Alright, so for the next part, I have some Scotch brand painter's tape. And I'm just going to use this to create a line here. And I'm going to use the natural fold of the cardstock to put that line in. And the idea is that I don't want to mix the two colors of paint that I'm going to put on here. Alright, so I have some painter's tape on. Let me get out my brush. I'm still working in that lighter shade of blue. I'm going to do the inside cover here. And I'm actually going to use a bigger brush here. Just because, you know, I can. Let me grab a bigger brush. Alright, so I have a bit of a bigger brush. It's a big area, so I'm just going to use a bigger brush. So the first thing I'm going to paint is this part right here. And I just want to make sure that I push this down because I want to make sure that I maintain that line. Get on my paper here. I don't want to get any paint on my board. It's a new board. I just got it. You know, and I don't want to paint it. At least not today. I might in a couple of days. We never know. So I'm going to go ahead and get some paint on this inside flap. And silly me, I put my paint board away, so we're just going to use the paper towel. Now, I don't know if I'm going to put any paper here or not, so I'm going to paint this whole inside cover, because I may not add paper per se on the inside. I may do something entirely different, so. Alright, let's take a look at where we are. We have 2 coats of paint around the outside. So we can mount some paper on here, and then we have 2 coats here, and we have a single coat here. I'm going to put one more coat on this, and then we will move on. So let's go ahead and start looking at how we're going to be putting this together. I'm just going to put these to the side for the moment, and let's go ahead and cover the outside here. And for that, we've chosen some paper, and we're going to need a ruler. And this is 5 1/4 inches this way, and 6 and just under 6 1/2 this way. It's like 6 3/8 by 5 1/4. So we want to give this an 1/8 of an inch all the way around. We're going to cut this one at 6. Let's see, so our paper is 6 inches wide, so we're going to have to go an 1/8 1/2. So we're going to take 3/8 off of this. So we're going to go 4 7/8 this way. Yeah, 4 7/8, and that'll get us right where we want to be. So I'm going to cut this piece at 4 7/8, and I'm being mindful of the pattern, you know, which direction I want my pattern to go. So I'm going to go 4 7/8. So let's take a look and see what that gives us. Look at that, right? Okay, I'm going to ink the edges on the paper so that I get this right where I want it. It's going to be the exact same side on the other side, so I'm going to cut this one down here at 4 7/8 as well. Okay. And we're going to get out some ink. just going to use some beige on here, some brown, just because I don't want to see the white paper. Should do it in blue, but I don't want to have the blue clash with the blue that we've already put. So I'm going to go ahead and, yeah, I think that's pretty good. All right. So I am going to glue this down, but I am going to also be putting it on with some double-sided tape. So I'm going to get some double-sided tape here. I'm going to use this on the edge. And then I'll tape in the center. Okay. And this is going to serve a couple of purposes. One, it's going to allow me to move this around just a little bit before I actually adhere it, because I'm not going to pull the back all the way off the tape. All right. So let me go ahead and hit that with the bone folder so that it makes it easier to release the tape. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull this out and give myself some flaps on here. And then we're going to get our glue. Let's make sure that this is open. I don't know about you, but every time I go to use my glue, it's not open. Alright, I'm just going to go ahead and put some glue in here. Then I'm going to take this and I'm going to find that spot where I want it to be. And basically to do that, I'm going to line up one corner. So I'm lining up the top and the side so I can get this on here. And then I'm going to pull out my tape backer. And that is going to allow me to make sure that those edges are pressed down really nice. And the glue inside is going to hold down the rest of it. So I'm just going to go over this with the bone folder. Okay. All right. So we have the front on. We're going to do the back exactly the same way. So we're back with our box. And this is going to have a journal inside of it. So this is where we are so far. We've painted the whole thing out in this very light, cool blue. We went ahead and put paper front and back. I was going to put paper on the sides, but I decided to leave that just the way that it is. And then on the inside, we painted this portion, the inside portion of the box, a different color. It's just slightly darker. It's a shimmery, more jeweled tone. And then I added a pocket over here with just a piece of leftover from the outside piece to bring that in. So that is right here across the bottom. We've got a little pocket right here. And then over here we put this little pocket with the belly band type pocket across it. And I wanted to, in the last video I kind of left this and I said, you know, I want that there. So what I did is I turned the box kind of this way and I used a pencil. And I just traced it, and then I just put it in the light and just used my craft knife to cut it out. And, you know, I did pretty good. It's not great, but I did it. It was pretty good. So just to match that mark. And then we have a little bit here that looks a little rough, but we're going to cover this with some washi tape. So that's not going to be an issue. we're just going to add some washi tape up in here, so that'll be okay. Maybe we'll add a piece of paper here. It's hard to say. But we then, underneath this pocket right here is a magnet, and underneath this pocket is a magnet, so that when we close this, it actually stays closed. It's got a little bit of a magnet closure going. And it's not a very strong, I used a very mild magnet. It's just enough to keep the lid on, so to speak. So, we're done with that portion. We're going to get to decorating this. Really easy stuff. We do have the pieces. I don't know if we're going to use any of this stuff, but let's take a look and see what's in here. And that will give us an idea of whether or not we're going to use any of it in our box. Now, I'm simply not going to use a lot of this stuff right now because I have the really busy paper on here. And I don't want it to be too busy. But we do have this little piece that says Cafe Happiness, and I might be able to use a different one of my plates to cut a solid piece and put this on top of it. So, let's go ahead and take a look at some of the solid papers that are in this set. There's a couple of them. There's the blue. There's that red, but it's not really solid. There's the green. The green might work. So let's pull out the green. And let's get our book plates down. And I have all of these different styles of book plates. And I really like this one, but we have to make sure we get the right size because it's got to be bigger than this. So we'll get the largest one out. That'll work. That might work. Let's take a look. This might work. Okay, so I'm going to get out my little cutter. Just going to use my scissors to cut a piece of the paper here that I think will be big enough. Alright, that's going to fit. Put this on the plate. We'll get one of these cut out just to test, see where we're at. See if we like it. We don't. No big deal. Alright. So we have a book plate. Get this put away. We may decide we want to go with a totally different shape. That's okay. We can do that. You get this out of the way. Let's see. All right, so I like the green. And I might like this if it had a little volume. But it has to have something. Yep, it has to have something. Alright. Alright. So, as I said, I have the perfect flower for this. What I did is I just went back and I grabbed some blue variegated organza ribbon. You can see it's got a nice little variegation on it. I grabbed my doll making needle, and I went ahead and just made a little ribbon rose. Now, I do have a video on that, and I will link that in the description below, or, you know, up here someplace at the top of the video. I will go ahead and put a link to that video so that you can check that out if you want to use it. They're pretty simple to do. They take just a second, and you know, I have to say they're pretty striking. So I went ahead and I did this one, and the way that I did it, I made sure that I had the whole variegation showing. So I'm going to use some dimensionals on this. So let's put a few dimensionals on here. Nice big one on either end. And then through the middle, we'll put some smaller ones. Man. Sorry about the earthquake. Harry's stretching. Whenever he stretches, my whole chair shakes. Okay. And, you know, somebody said I use a lot of these dimensionals, and I do. I admit that. I use a lot of dimensionals, but I do it for a reason. Because I like them. And I have a lot of them. I'm kidding. Alright, so I've got some dimensionals on the back here. Give those a little push to help release. And then we'll take those off. You never realize how much you use a thumbnail till you break it off. Alright. We're going to center this. Get that out of there. Okay. And then two little ribbon roses here. Pull these up. I hot glue them on the back, and then I push them onto the board just to flatten the hot glue. And then I can nip off the draw. And these are now locked. They're not going to unspin or anything. Kind of like one top and bottom. So we're going to put these on top and bottom. I'm going to use a little Fabri-Tac for that. And of course, you could use 3-in-1 if you want it with this. But I am literally gluing down ribbon, so I'm going to put one here. And I'm going to be putting the other one over on the other corner there. We're just going to give these a second to dry. And then this whole thing is going to get put on the cover of the book. Well, the case of it anyway. We really can't decorate the cover too much because it's going to be inside the book. And by the time I finish gator mouthing the book, there's not going to be a whole lot of room on the front for me to put any kind of a decoration. It'll be flat. So, and then put this down. And I'm going to let the whole thing dry, and I'll be back in just a few moments. Alright, so that is basically the start of getting our book together, our box. We've got our box done, and I think in the next installment, we're going to go ahead and get started on getting pages in, getting our book covered, and getting our inside pieces done, and getting our papers put in and our spine and everything. So that'll be the next thing that we work on. And when it's all done, our book is going to fit right inside of our box. Okay? All right. So until I see you again, listen, if you haven't done so already, go ahead and hit that red button for me, like me, ring my bell, and share me with all of your friends. Then your friends can be my friends, and my friends can be your friends, and our friends can be friends. And before you know it, we're a community. Till I see you again, stay safe. Bye-bye.